The source of authority. Like, wouldn't you say that the reason why the United States has so much influence, power, and control over the world is because it is the leader in knowledge, advancement, and usage of knowledge to gain economic and military power, isn't it? Would you agree on this, or is it no? Or just Americans are just superior to others because they have a nice flag? Yeah, so that's what we came to talk about. The responsibility. وَإِذْ قَالَ رَبُّكَ لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ إِنِّي جَاعِلٌ فِي الْأَرْضِ خَلِيفَةً. So it all starts right there for us. This is our existence, our responsibility. Remember when your Lord declared to the angels, indeed, I am appointing humanity as the responsible authority on earth. Now some of you might say, well, where's humanity and all of that? And there, it's understood. There's no scholar that would disagree with this. And that's one of the problems with many translations is the translation is not accounting for the rich poetic flavor of Arabic that says things that are what we call mustatir or mahdhuf, right? Something that's naturally understood and it doesn't need to be said in literal terms. Whereas in English, the poetic nature of English is not there because it's a very technical language. It's a very ABC 1, 2, 3. You need all of the information to understand English. In Arabic, you can understand things that are not there. So God is telling them that the responsible authority on earth is who? Human beings, all of us, right? Okay? So we are held accountable according to our responsibility, right? So this is the beginning of religion, right? This is what religion is that we were put here with the responsibility of authority over the whole entire earth and everything in it. That's what it means. We were meant to be the authority. And we are considered the top of the food chain. We are considered the most sophisticated being. It's all something we know. So that means we will be held accountable. The other being is not knowing their place in it. They're not an authority by any sort of knowledge. They're an authority by the ecosystem. So the confusion comes that the angels are concerned. قالوا أتجعل فيها من يفسد فيها ويسفك الدماء ونحن نسبح بحمدك ونقدس لك. They're confused, the angels. They replied, why would you give such a position to those who would spread corruption and bloodshed while we, the angels, are glorifying your praises and sanctifying your holiness? You see, this is a strange thing to them, right? Now you can read in the Tafseers some things that are written that are actually baseless in terms of the chain of hadith, right? So there was a war between jinns and this is where they saw that and all of that. There's no base for this. It sounds for a good story. It makes for a good Hollywood movie, perhaps, right? A lot of people like to look into religion like that. What's interesting? Let's be entertained. No, actually, they are simply knowing what will happen. And they're like, why will this? Because angels are given the knowledge of qadr. They are given the knowledge of what's going to happen, what will be, right? And so, why would this person be the official, responsible authority? God's vicegerent, God's deputy on earth will be people who would do these things. And we are always praising your glory and sanctifying your holiness. So there's kind of an implied, shouldn't we be doing this, right? Isn't that implied? Do you think? Fair enough. Allah knows best. We're just interpreting, right? Perfectionism and pessimism come from a narrow-mindedness because they are by default perfectionist. They don't even know what they're doing as perfection. They just know that's what they do. That's the default. Angels are programmed. They don't have a personal philosophical will. They have their independence where they can question, why is this? Why is that? They can be like that. But they would never even think, well, I want to do something else. Or I think it should be that instead of that. They're just simply trying to understand, right? So they saw bad things happening and that's like, why would anybody do that? Right? Because they can't understand what they're not capable of. Actually, this is the story of Abu Bakr as-Siddiq. Abu Bakr, actually, it says that even his own family, that most nobody drank. This is a unique family. Because they were all drunkards in Arabia back then. Okay? So Abu Bakr says, I was a kid, maybe 9 years old. and I saw a man drunk and doing this, and then I saw him use the bathroom, and then I saw him pick it up, and he started looking at what he had done. And I said, there's no reason why anybody would ever drink alcohol. Look at this. Look what he's doing, right? He's coming from, I've never drank, I've never been around it, right? Okay, so we should never, number one, assume that that smoker or that drunkard may not become better than any one of us. You with me? Are you with me? We cannot look at sin, because that's how many Muslims become religious classists. Say, we are the holy, we are the pious. Assuming for yourself that you will continue that way. Be careful. You should never assume like that. And assuming that this one cannot become greater, because Omar radiyaAllahu anhu used to drink often. It's well known. And he became better than all of us. Okay? And so, the guy, he said, Omar's donkey will become Muslim before him. Because he could not imagine such a violent, angry, drunken person would become the greatest leader in human history after the prophets. But that's what happened. So we should never be narrow-minded about things, right? That's why some people, and I'm not condoning anything, I'm just saying, okay? Because I come from a different background than you. Some people were here and they were smoking marijuana here. Some people in our community thought as though murder had happened, okay? And I understand where you're coming from. But I know of people who came from that background, who became very pious people of knowledge. We should try to look for the good in things. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, وَعُجِبْنَ الْفَأْلِ, and I am greatly impressed by optimism. That people would see something and they would say something good and positive about it, right? True virtue can only come out of freedom, right? Because the human being, we reach true virtue because we choose to do it. By our own, right? The Prophet ﷺ, he said in the opposite way. You have to learn this phrase, mafhum al-mukhalafa. The opposite is true. It's an Islamic legal principle of logic, of morality. So the Prophet ﷺ said, تَجَاوَزَ اللَّهُ عَنْ أُمَّتِي الْخَطَأ وَالنِّسْيَانِ وَمَسْتُكْرِهُ عَلَيْهِ. That God has overlooked the sins of my nation if they made a mistake, it was an accident, they slipped into it, they weren't planning it, it just happened all of a sudden, astaghfirullah. Or they forgot what the rule was, they didn't know, they forgot that this was the rule. Genuinely they weren't aware while doing it. Or someone forced them to do this sin, right? So they were forced to do a sin. And so now they didn't intend to do that. So in all three cases, their heart is not trying to do a sin. So the Prophet is saying, Allah will overlook all of that. So now you see when we're raising our kids, so the opposite of true. Are the kids really pious if they're praying because we forced them to pray? See, many people understand telling your child to pray as forcing your child to pray. Those are two different things. If we are knowing what Islam is, and we are teaching our kids why Islam, how Islam, what Islam, and we have the evidence and the proof and the wisdom and the beauty and the richness, and we're explaining all of that. Anybody that knows those things would want to pray. And maybe they'll forget and get a little bit lazy sometimes. And so to be Ramadan, you need to pray. Okay, you're right. But if it's like, if you don't pray, now you're not getting virtue from this person. They feel that they must pray out of fear. So their prayer is for whom? Allah or you? So the whole point is lost. Right? If someone was only praying simply because my parent put fear into me, did they get any reward for that prayer? So then religion became a power trip from our own. You see? And this is how things are. We have to teach our kids the truth so that they will choose it. That Islam is something they are convinced with on their own. That they see the evidence and the proof and the reasoning and the why. Knowledge is the basis for authority. Okay? قَالَ إِنِّي أَعْلَمُ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. Okay? God responded, surely I know that which you do not. So the angels have questioned, why are you putting this person in authority? This type of person who will do all these terrible things. And then God said, I know what you do not know. Right? So he's teaching them. God is the omniscient. Omniscient means absolute complete knowledge. Nothing has escaped him. Everything in his knowledge is absolute. He's not bound by time. He doesn't learn things. He doesn't adjust because he came new experience or whatever. As you sometimes hear Christians and Jews giving this kind of human process of experience type relation to God. God regretted. It's in the Old Testament. God regretted creating people. It says like that. Like, at first he was thinking, maybe I should create people. Then he saw what they did and he was like, I shouldn't have done that. You see what I'm saying? That's how I'm saying. We know that's blasphemy. Right? That's absolutely blasphemy. Right? He knows what everyone else does not know. So it's from and by him that we seek knowledge. When you seek knowledge, you're getting closer to Al-Alim. وَعَلَّمَ آدَمَ الْأَسْمَاءَ كُلَّهَا. Now you're going to hear a very different translation and interpretation than you've heard. And I just, originally Sheikh Abdul Warith, Allah yarhamu, one of my teachers from long ago, he taught me this, and after studying many tafseers and then comparing what is being said here, I became convinced with this. He taught Adam creative linguistic expression. Then he called the angels' attention towards creation and asked, tell me the names of these things if you are truthful. See, the way some people read and the literal meaning seems to be like God was like, okay, Adam, that's a rock, that's a tree, that's a cloud, you're feeling happy, this is that. And so he's sitting there, I don't know, for hundreds of thousands of years explaining every little detail. So my sheikh explained to me, but isn't that how the angels are weaker than us? That they just can only know exactly what they're told and they don't have this ability to think creatively, right? And so if you look at language itself, like the things, like for example, was there a time, are you ready for this? When many things that we talk about now did not exist in Adam's time. Isn't it like the vast majority of everything that we're talking about, like this shirt I'm wearing like this, right? This thing and everything. Like think about how much He has blessed us to create and sophisticated expression. We are coming up with this from our own. And so the angels cannot just look at something and say, that's what it is. They have to be told, okay, God, tell me exactly what that is. We're different. That's what makes us who we are. The greatness of humanity is in intelligent communication. Allamahu ar-Rahman, allama al-Quran, khalaqa al-insan, allamahu al-bayan. That's the single distinguishing unique trait of human beings. We have sophisticated creative expression that can become very profoundly. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ said, Inna min al-bayani la sihra. This is a hadith, authentic hadith. That from good expression is like magic, sorcery. I mean, what do you think propaganda is? I mean, it can go good ways or bad ways, It depends on what you're propagandizing. If we're doing da'wah right, this is the good propagandizing, right? Some people have been very effective. Like, there were white people in the time of Malcolm X. When he would speak, they were trained to hate this man and see him, but then they just start thinking like, he's got a point, like he's getting into their hearts and moving it, right? And in a good direction, right? And so this is the greatness of humanity. قالوا سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا. See what's happening here? They said, glory be to you. All we know is what you have taught us. Truly you are omniscient and wise. Meaning we do not have the ability to just look at something and explain it and talk about it from our own. We do not have that ability, right? So then, humility is a must when proven ignorant. And this is a big struggle that we have. For example, a young man asked me, he says, I was making wudu and I wiped over my shoes. And then the man said, you have to take your shoes off. And then I told him, well, I learned that there's a hadith from the Imam that you can wipe over the shoes and then you can take them off and pray. And the whole reason behind that is because the point is that your foot is covered and it's a facilitation. There's no washing of the sock. It's just like a symbolic wipe over. That's why it's not even on the bottom. It's just symbolic. Whether there's two socks and one shoe and you took off the shoe and the sock, as long as the foot's been covered the whole time. And there's actually a hadith that Ali ibn Abi Talib was wearing sandals on top of socks and he wiped over and then took his sandals off and prayed. So this is where we get all that from. So then the brother became very forceful with him. And I said, so what did you say? He said, well, I just tried to tell him, maybe that's a different opinion or interpretation. And then this brother is not able to see that he's saying something based upon his personal experience. Is something you've seen people doing true knowledge of religion? Or is it potentially true or false knowledge of religion? So humility, when you don't really know what you're talking about, is a fundamental quality of believers. Because the angels know. When they were told, look, you do not know, you do not have the ability, then they said, okay, we're wrong. Like they said, Subhana, you're glorified above us, whatever you say is the truth. We're not challenging you, we just want to understand. Right? That's what was going on in the previous ayah. So we have to have humility. قَالَ يَا آدَمُ أَنْبِئْهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. So then the command came. He asked Adam, inform them the names of these things. فَلَمَّا أَنْبَأَهُمْ بِأَسْمَائِهِمْ. So when he told them, God told the angels, didn't I tell you that I know the unperceived of the heavens and the earth, just as I know what you openly express as well as what you conceal within yourselves. Right? So this is, now Adam is able to say, this is this, and all of that. Right? So this is now the legacy, the beginning of rejection. We don't have a clear-cut point about this, but we generally understand that Iblis as a jinn has free will, right? Okay, so knowledge is the source of authority. That's the key point. If you know something, then you have a reason to have authority over it, right? Back to our point. When Muslims were a civilization where their knowledge of religion and their knowledge of the world was deep and it was ingrained and it was cultivated by the rulers and leadership, then the world looked to us as the leaders. And we were the innovators. And we were the ones that had the system. When that became about the power of the Ottomans or the power of the Abbasides or the power of Bani Umayyah, and it was just about our legacy as the kings and the rulers, and then the people were not doing, then those who have knowledge stepped in and said, that's why it says, قَالَ الَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمِ in the Quran. The people of knowledge stepped in and said, hold on, right? This is not right. We have to do this. This is what we need to be doing with our society. So that's where Bani Umayyah became Bani Abbas. And that's where Bani Abbas became the Ottomans, right? And that's an amazing thing. Can you imagine that Egypt, Libya, all of that was all Shia for hundreds of years? But subhanAllah, the knowledge came to people. It wasn't really much of a fight because the fight was the original kind of, but then over time, it's just like Islam came to, like, let's never forget this point. Because the lie that these people, like, have you ever heard during the genocide, you heard every accusation is a confession. And this goes back to the Crusaders and the Europeans. They're the ones, by fact of their own historians, that went into a land and wiped out whole entire amount of people. You either convert or we will kill you. That's what they did. In our history, most of the futuhat took 500 plus years to become majority Muslim because the non-Muslims were always given the right to remain in their religion. Which is why you still have 44 million Christian Arabs and you still have over 1 million Jewish Arabs, and then you have 1 billion Hindus. You see? And so that whole thing is people learning over time, and that's what the point was. We didn't come here to subjugate or erase you people. We came here because the divine knowledge we were given must be known, and this modern era that we live in, it has to be a war. There is no UN, freedom of religion, human rights declarations, sovereign nations, and all of that. None of that exists. There are empires, emperor, and religion. And you come in there, and you want to contradict that, you will be strung up, or you better bring your army with you. That's how the world was. You can't force on a whole entire world of culture of reality. The world was in a perpetual state of war by natural reality, right? So knowledge is the source of our authority throughout our history as Muslims. But God will give authority to others with knowledge. وَإِذْ قُلْنَا لِلْمَلَائِكَةِ اسْجُدُوا لِآدَمَ. God told the angels, remember we told the angels, prostrate in reverence to Adam. And they all prostrated. except for Iblis, who arrogantly refused, thus becoming the first of the ungrateful. So the point here is Iblis. Is he an angel? He is not an angel. He is a jinn. As we read every Friday, كَانَ مِنَ الْجِنِّ فَفَسَقَ عَنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّهِ. So he was, what we understand from proper creed, what we know from scripture is it appears as though Iblis is the father of all jinns and Adam is the father of all humans. There is no real evidence anywhere to prove that there were humans or jinns before them. Okay? That's all we call Israeliyat. Right? Those are not acceptable. Those are stories that were told by others. And so Ibn Kathir and others, they threw them in there. Maybe this is the... See, Ibn Kathir is not a hadith scholar. He's not there to find out, is this hadith authentic? He's there to find out, this is a khabar. It's some sort of information and it fits in my tafsir. Like the whole thing about Qissat al-Gharaniq. And supposedly the Prophet ﷺ is praising the idols when he's reading Surah Al-Najm. That's a very weak hadith. But it got thrown in there because it seems to solve the problem of what's in this ayah. So the way we understand it is Iblis is a jinn, he has free will, and he's going to do this, and he chose to do this. Because is God just if he creates someone that he makes to be evil and then puts him in hell forever? No. And I've read some very weird explanations for how that makes God just. God can be just, but isn't meaning what makes us human. Isn't the intellect what we understand things? Now we're getting into what I left in Christianity. Father, Son, Holy Spirit. It's just like this, it's like that. And then they start saying everybody believe in all this stuff. And I'm like, no, guys, this is nonsense. So what we told, the holy men told us. They said in religion, you just accept these things and don't ask questions. No, I'm here to tell you that Allah is just. And that He would give people free will. And then that will go to heaven because they chose it. And that will go to hell because they chose it. Right? And never would He put anyone unjustly anywhere. Right? Okay? So arrogance and envy are the root of all evil. This is what we learn right here. The beginning of the deviation, rejection. So ingratitude, kafir, is ingratitude. So of course, it's not that Iblis doesn't believe in God. He knows God. He's been talking to him directly. Like it's not like he has to look into the signs of miracles and faith and all that. He knows God. He knows who God is. It's just his arrogance and envy led him to be ungrateful for the fact that God has given me everything. I'm everything. All I am is what God made me. And so when He tells me to bow down, I should bow down. So now he's ungrateful and that makes him reject. So he's a rejecter of God, of His authority. He's rejecting His authority. Kufr. I'm better than. I'm greater than. I deserve. I'm entitled. I should have. When you're really just part of His will, you are from Him and of Him and fully valued through Him. So he says, arrogance is rejection of truth and condescending others. This is a hadith. Because the Prophet ﷺ, he was telling people about things and he had told them about certain garment, as it dragged, and he says, this is arrogance, and so whoever did that, Allah will not look at them. So the guy said, but what if I have really nice clothes and my sandals are really nice? And I want to, the Prophet ﷺ said, Allah loves to see the good of the blessing on you. Right? But arrogance is batr al-haq wa ghamt al-nas, is to reject the truth when it comes to you. For example, here, God saying, bow down to Adam. That's the truth. Al-haq yatakallam. And He knows that. But He's rejecting it. Right? Why? Because He's condescending Adam. He's looking down upon him. He's lesser than me. I'm better than him. I came from before. I'm of a better material system. I'm from fire. He's from earth. He's creating this system of condescension. So this is arrogance, and so many scholars will say, and the reason why he's doing that, because he wishes he's the one that everybody's bowing down to. He's envying him. He feels he should be in his spot. So you see people do all kinds of evil things because of this self-absorption, self-entitlement. Say, for example, somebody said, I want this person, but I've the one been doing that job for you. I'm the one. You should consider why this person would want to go to that person to do the job rather than you. And maybe think where you need to up your game rather than just assume I should be the one. Right? But some people are not capable of that because Iblis got into their sudur, into their heart.